We're forgetting ourselves as black people while we're here in this hemisphere. I'm about to read some information to you, and I'm going to get into the main portion of the story, which is, have they created a monster? And when I say have they created a monster, what I'm talking about is, has the white man, has the European created a monster? Right? And who's their monster? What monster did they create? The American Negro. We're their monster. And I finally figured that out.
The mainstream media caused the New York subway shooting.
Mr. Reagan.
I'm sure you're all aware of the vile, racist black man who went on a shooting spree in a New York City subway car, firing 33 times at passengers crowded into that train car.
Police say this video, also part of the investigation, shows the suspect entering Kings Highway subway station prior to the shooting. The attack on the Manhattan-bound N train unfolding at 8:26 a.m. as the train approached the 36th Street station. Authorities say James put on a gas mask, took a canister out of a bag, and opened it. This video, shot by one of the passengers, showing the smoke beginning to fill the train car. Then the suspect opened fire.
He was sitting in the back corner of the second car, and he popped the smoke grenade. And we have one witness who says, what did you do? He goes, oops, and then he pops the two, brandishes the firearm, and fires 33 times.
I saw people with blood all over their clothes. I saw people literally on top of each other, crowding over each other, trying to get out of the way, trying to not be seen. People are just panicking.
And why attack all of these people? Well, because this man is a vicious racist.
There's a whole lot of white motherfuckers that interpret that shit some other way, including the story of Ham and the fact that Ham was cursed by God with blackness. They see that as God cursed you to be black and to be a slave. They still believe that to this day. What makes you a N-word? The fact that you have a desire and you have an appetite for a European way of life and living, and you're not a European. You're a crime against nature. You're a crime against life. This is why you exist, as a result of criminal acts against nature and against humanity. You're a black European where there are no black Europeans. You want to be just like the motherfucker that made you a slave, but makes you still a slave. And these white motherfuckers want to kill you. They have to get rid of you. You're direct competition for value, resource, and real estate. We could have power. We could have control. And the one only example that I have to show you is someone like Malcolm X. But you'll never stop being the N-word. As long as you live in a society unchanged and you haven't done a factory reset on your humanity and embraced your Africanness, then you can never stop being the N-word. These people haven't changed. They want you to believe that you're a part of society. They need you to believe that you have some control and have some power here when you have none. You're a domesticated savage. That's what I call it, a domesticated savage. There's no way Africans and Europeans would ever interact with each other except as a result of a criminal act. A mule is a mule. He may not want to be called it, but that's what he is. That's your turn. You're a human mule. A mix between different races of people that should never happen. It's unnatural and it's sick. But time will tell. Time will tell how bad it's going to be. How much of this nation is going to go, the white population's nation, is going to go toward fascism, the outright fascism. They're going to cordon off their areas where your black ass is not going. If you go anywhere near where they live, your ass is dead. Or they can re-enslave you by locking you up.
Just for YouTube's edification, I am not including clips of this man saying racist things because I am promoting these racist things or condoning these racist things. I am in fact condemning these things and showing the world how awful certain people can be and how we have to end this evil disease of racism. I have to put that disclaimer because YouTube will censor this and say that I am promoting hate speech or something like that. Sadly, Elon Musk has not yet bought YouTube. But listen, this intense hatred, this vile racism, I believe, is the fault of the mainstream media. And I'll explain why in one moment. First, of course, I have to sell you something.
For years now, people have been setting up a little contest between crypto and gold, but that's like comparing trucks with SUVs. Both carry stuff and both travel from A to B, but they do different jobs. Gold's job is to keep the value of your money safe and to preserve its value. And since Ukraine and the oil and inflation crises, gold has done a brilliant job compared to stocks and other investments. So if you're worried about what's going on right now, and who isn't, just talk to the experts at Noble Gold about precious metals IRAs for your retirement. They'll put you straight on your options and they'll hold your hand through the entire setup process. And this month, for any qualified IRA, you'll get an incredible 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin completely free as a thank you. You know, when they sent me this, they send me coins every once in a while. Valeria flipped out. So far, this is her favorite coin, and I have to say, I agree. This thing is pretty nice. So call 877-646-5347 right now to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
Now, the mainstream media has been reluctant to report the New York shooting for what it is, a racist attack. And they are not reporting this, even though they are well aware of the attacker's racist tirades.
In one video posted the day before the shooting, he allegedly said, "I can say I wanted to kill people. I wanted to watch people die." And in another video, it's clear his attention had turned to NYC, allegedly saying, "Mr. Mayor, I'm a victim of your mental health program. I'm 63, now full of hate, full of anger, and full of bitterness."
But, you know, it's not surprising that the mainstream media would be reluctant to acknowledge the racist motivations for this attack. For one thing, the media have maintained a fiction about America for decades now. The fiction that white Americans are racist and that ethnic minorities, and black Americans specifically, are the victims of that racism. The reality of the subway shooting exposes a counter-narrative. It exposes the truth, that it may not in fact be white Americans that are the dangerous racists, but black Americans. The media doesn't want us to believe that. You know, it's a kind of a bizarre thing, but I watched a couple of episodes of a game show called The Weakest Link earlier this week, and I noticed a funny trend. Often when white women had to vote off black contestants, they did so with a strong reluctance. They were unusually apologetic.
Trey.
I mean, I kept seeing this happen, and I thought, that is strange. It's strange that they feel this great sympathy for the black contestants, specifically the black men. And what it looked like to me is that they have white guilt. And this is something that I thought that we were kind of over in America, but I guess not. But why would we be over it? The media is constantly telling white people that we're the problem, that we're perpetuating systemic racism, either intentionally or unintentionally. And they tell us that we need to be quiet and listen. And they tell us that we need to take a knee and constantly apologize and, you know, all that crap. And of course, there are gullible idiots who are going to fall for this, and they're going to believe it. And you know, it's not just the media, it's schools. School teachers from elementary schools to colleges basically teach white students that they are bad, they're the bad race, right? And black students are good, they're the good race.
Much of America was literally built on your black back, was literally built on slavery. Texas school books are now trying to make it sound not quite so bad. And that means that these crackers are unrepentant. They do not see your enslavement as something bad. They see it as something beneficial to you in some sort of sick and perverted way. And if they could put your black ass back in chains and shackles, they would do that in a heartbeat and not think shit about it.
Today, we call this critical race theory, but the truth is that even before critical race theory became the popular name for it, this kind of teaching already existed. And we conservatives often voice our concerns about what this does to white students, how unfair it is, how cruel it is to tell students that they are intrinsically bad. And we also complain about the absurdity of this kind of instruction, how it's just plain incorrect and how it's fundamentally racist. But what we don't tend to talk about is what this kind of teaching does to black students. And we never address how the mainstream media has been radicalizing violent black extremists. Tucker Carlson actually pointed out the other day on his show that this used to be something that the FBI tracked, violent black extremists, but not anymore. Why not? Well, the FBI doesn't want to be called racist. Being called racist is more of a concern to the FBI than stopping black domestic terrorists from murdering innocent people. This is how powerful the media message has become. To the FBI, domestic terrorism is less scary than being called racist. But you know what? Let's talk about it here. I mean, I've discussed this before on my show, but my show is the only place that I've seen this discussed at all. But let's discuss how the mainstream media is radicalizing violent black extremists, because they are. There are various kinds of violent black extremists. The New York subway shooter was radicalized in isolation, as far as I can tell. A lot of black men historically were radicalized by groups like the Black Panthers in the 1960s, and a lot of them today are radicalized by the Nation of Islam. But all of them are getting a supporting narrative from the mainstream media. The white man is the cause of all of your problems. You are an amazing, perfect person. Any failure in your life is entirely due to the oppression of the evil white man. Well, of course, some black men are becoming radicalized. Of course they are, with that message. What's more, the media hides stories about black people murdering white children. They hide stories about black teenagers burning a white man alive. Meanwhile, they sensationalize every instance of a black man being attacked by a white man in America, even if it isn't true. The Washington Free Beacon has just conducted a study of 1,100 articles that report on homicides in America. And they discovered that when the suspect was white, the race of the suspect was mentioned 23% of the time.
The gunman is described as a white male in his mid-30s.
Police say a 21-year-old white male has been charged with 4 counts of murder.
Connor Betts, a 24-year-old white male.
Right now, the sheriff says that there is one suspect, a white male, who is dead at the scene.
But when the suspect was black, the race was mentioned 6% of the time.
They were shot down by a former co-worker with a grudge, a man who'd been on air, trusted by the television audience.
The homeless man wanted in the stabbing death of UCLA grad student Brianna Kupfer is under arrest. Suspected killer Sean Laval Smith has a rap sheet filled with at least 11 arrests in North and South Carolina and Los Angeles.
I'll say that again. If a suspect is white, he's mentioned 23% of the time. If a suspect is black, he's mentioned 6% of the time. Suspects that are white are often mentioned. Suspects that are black are almost never mentioned. Not only that, but when the murderer's race was mentioned in an article, the race of the white murderer is almost always mentioned at the top of the article, while the black murderer's race would almost always be buried at the bottom. So yeah, this kind of editorializing is of course going to radicalize violent black extremists. At the very least, it's going to perpetuate the illusion that black Americans are all good victims, and it's those evil racist whites that we really have to be afraid of. This is a lie. The truth is, and I say it all the time on this show, but I'm gonna say it once again, the truth is that we do have a racism problem in America. But it's not white racism against black Americans. It's black racism against white Americans. And there are tons of cases like the New York shooting. I've reported on this stuff several times on my show. This is not an isolated incident. It seems that black men are constantly being radicalized to violence against white Americans. It's not just becoming a real problem in America, it's been a real problem in America. And yet it's gone almost entirely unrecognized. This is not the only problem that stems from black racism against white people in America. Yes, it's the most horrific, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem all the time, and we really do have to deal with it. But this racism also causes a lot of problems for black Americans. Because how limited do you make yourself if many of the business owners that can hire you are white and you hate white people? How limited are you making yourself by refusing to speak proper English because it's, quote, too white? How limited are you making the next generation of black Americans by saying that studying is something that white people do? Black America is destroying itself through racism. Black Americans are limiting each other with this insidious racism, spreading this myth of systemic racism against black people in America. And the mainstream media is perpetuating these myths. Worse, they're radicalizing violent black extremism. The New York City subway shooting was the result of evil racist propaganda against white people, perpetuated by universities, by the New York Times, by CNN, by MSNBC, and by the rest of the leftist mainstream media. So it's good that CNN is dying, but this left-wing propaganda has not died. And so it's our job as conservatives to combat this fictional narrative and instead express the truth about America. We need to stop accepting this absurd idea that white people are all guilty of something. No, we need to stand against this. White Americans must demand respect from academia. We must demand respect from the media. We can no longer accept that every movie and TV show depicts white Americans as the bad guy. We can no longer accept this fictional narrative on CNN and MSNBC that white Americans are oppressive racists. And we cannot allow our universities to indoctrinate students with anti-white racism. White Americans are, by and large, good people. And it's time the world started to acknowledge that. Well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
I am eternally optimistic, and I happen to believe that we've made great progress from the days when I was young and when this country didn't even know it had a racial problem. I know those things can grow out of despair in an inner city, when there's hopelessness at home, lack of work and so forth.